Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce Denise Boyd. And Denise is going to be talking on nutrition and our diets. The name of the presentation is Everybody Eats. And Denise is in a really great position to talk with us about this. She has 30 years of experience as a registered dietitian with aging programs. She has developed a SAC lunch program, home delivered meals programs, shelf-stable meals, and a lot of other programs in feeding older adults. One of the things I appreciate most about Denise is she really likes food. She doesn't just see it as fuel for our body, but one of the things she often tells me is if people don't like it, they're not going to eat it. So we need to make sure that it's nutritious, but it's also tasty. So please join me in welcoming Denise Boyd.
Well, I don't know if it's a pleasure to be here or not this evening because I have lots of opinions about food, and I'm not sure they're always the probably the regular ones that some dietitians have. But I have worked all of my career in community dietetics, so I'm not a clinical dietitian. I have worked in feeding older adults all these years and want to continue to do that by offering alternatives for the next generation of seniors. I titled my little remarks today, Everybody Eats. Now those of you that know the children's literature know there's a book called Everybody Poops, but that's not that is not the generation of this topic. I do understand that one leads to the other, but what I notice is that everyone eats. Everyone reads the media, watches the television, looks at the magazine, looks at the internet, so that everybody has opinions about food. Everybody is willing to tell me about, had I seen the Dr. Oz show about green coffee? Have I learned about the low-carb diets? Nobody, even people in my family, do this. They know I have a little bit of training, a little bit of experience, but everybody eats and everybody thinks they're a food expert. I recently did get to visit with someone about the dangers of high fructose corn syrup, which seems to be a current topic. Now, I am not here. Now, is this how we do this? Oh, wow. I am not here as the food police. Too many dietitians, I think, have a reputation. You know, you see the dietitian after you've had a diagnosis and they're supposed to help you decide how to totally revamp your eating pattern, but that's not why I'm here today. If I could do one thing for people, I would like to help them make peace with food because, you know, it is I think it is one of the tragedies of our time that we have a variety of food and we have so many people that feel like they can't enjoy it. So I would like to help people make peace with food, and I would like to help people enjoy food as nourishment. I would like to think of myself as more of a food historian and a food anthropologist. If I could make my living reading and researching food history, I would do that, but not too many jobs in that area. Right now, in this country, we have quite a bit of nutritional problems. Some of them have to do with overconsumption. Some of them are people that avoid good food. We think that about 9% of the American population has anorexia. The other term is orthorexia, and I don't know if you've heard of that word. It actually means people trying to eat right all the time. You know, anorexics avoid food. Orthorexics are fixated on food and want to eat pure and eat right. It's such a new term, we don't really have any measurement of the population that has that kind of problem. But I do see that in people, and I do see those two populations or two problems in our senior population also. Kind of a quick test for you to think about whether you might be orthorexic is, do you spend more than 3 hours a day thinking about what you're going to eat? Do you plan your day's menus more than the day ahead of time? Do you take pleasure from virtuous aspects of food? Do you feel like the quality of your life diminishes as you increase your food consumption? Are you rigid and self-critical about your eating patterns, kind of like that self-compassion? Do you base your self-esteem and your self-worth about eating healthy? If you answer yes to those questions, then you have a tendency towards orthorexia. And you might want to see if you can deal with some of those issues. I have found in the research that I looked at that individuals with anorexia are a real challenge to treat. Actually, there's about 3% of those individuals that die of their disease. The orthorexics, if you feel like you might have some of those tendencies, those can be more easily treated. It's much more of a treatable problem. But everybody eats. Everybody thinks they're a food expert. I think eating is essential. I think we all know that. It's historical, and it's cultural, and it's changing rapidly, as with many of the changes that we have. Eating is essential, shouldn't surprise any of you. We do know, based upon observations of people that are go on fasts, such as Gandhi went on several fasts, and the Northern Ireland inmates also went on food strikes. And they observed that if you're adequately hydrated, you can live for approximately 30 days without eating. You think, oh, that's not going to be in your lifestyle. I was a little shocked to see about a physician that has written a book recently about the fasting diet, that you fast 2 days a week, which I guess, if our goal is only to lose weight, that is an option for individuals, for the person that writes that book to enjoy some success. What I'm concerned about are the individuals that are in the population that I serve that frequently are put on nothing by mouth. You might have that kind of a condition if you're going in for screening tests or if you're having surgery, and then when you get out of surgery you don't really feel like eating, or you might have chemo and that ruins your appetite. So you do see people that are not eating an adequate diet at all. I get very concerned about people ending up in the cascade of frailty in that situation. I would hope that your healthcare providers will get you involved with a dietitian that will help you with tube feedings or with some additional supplements, because it is very important that you continue to work that alimentary canal. I've seen too often, I actually have experience in my family, where my mother was told to go home. She broke a bone in her leg and she was told to go home and sit for 6 weeks with their leg up. And let me tell you what happens when you decondition yourself at 90 some years of age. You don't really recover. So you have to think about what is being advised you and what you need to continue to work on. So I'm sure the last thing we all want is that cascade of frailty and losing our independence. Eating is historical, and this was kind of a fun thing to look at, was to look at a timeline. 75,000 years ago, before the Common Era, we found that the Homo sapiens in existence and the Neanderthals were basically of the hunter-gatherer sustainability of food finding. So they spent almost all their time either hunting, gathering, or cooking food. We think that the cooking of food actually happened a few 100,000 years before 75,000 BC. But even in ancient times, a lot of food was not available unless it was cooked. And that once we started learning how to cook food, there were more foods that were available to us. That's one of the deficits of being a human, is that we need 8 essential amino acids. Our bodies cannot make those amino acids, and we need those to form the proteins that build our muscles and hold us up. We also need a consistent source of glucose to maintain our brain function. And we also need a vitamin C. We are one of the few species, along with other primates and guinea pigs, that do not manufacture our own vitamin C. So we have to find that. We don't have the enzymes which break down a lot of the cellulose and a lot of the grasses and plant foods that are available to us, which is why we learned how to cook. I couldn't make a timeline long enough, so we just have an arrow that food was cultivated first in about 8,000 BC. And that is when man was able to quit being a hunter-gatherer and was able to have settlements and cultivate food. And that is really, I would say, is the beginning of civilization. So eating is historical. It led to civilization because we were able to cultivate food. Now, that is today. And I did a little looking back that the first fast food restaurant was developed in the Midwest at White Castle Restaurants in 1920. So that's, when you think about 1920, 75,000 BC, that's a long time. But this is pervasive in our food environment. And there are billions of dollars that are spent to market those food choices to us. It's in the media, it's everywhere. And so the sad little amount of money that is allocated for nutrition education, either through the food stamp program or through the school program, is minuscule up against all of the marketing that is there for the food companies and the food industry. Eating is cultural. We all learn what we're going to eat, usually in our family of origin, and that can depend on a lot of things. It could depend on your nationality. It could depend upon your racial background. It might depend upon your religious background. There's some religions that ask us to avoid certain foods. Depends on your economic class. that as the world progresses, we see that some of our eating patterns, such as the meat consumption, is spreading across the world, and we see people wanting to eat more meat as they become more economically advanced. Education also impacts your eating patterns. But we learn these habits, this culture in our family of origin. We also have a lot of values on eating. We eat for celebration. You know, I believe the favorite holiday of all time in this country is Thanksgiving, and that is just a feast. So we eat a lot for other reasons than just sustaining. If we really wanted to eat for just sustaining, we would have something like puppy chow or cat chow. But we don't do that because we enjoy food, we like food, and we want to have more than just pellets for lunch. Eating is changing, and I looked up the statistics on farm numbers of farmers and who has a farming background. And I grew up on a farm, and I assume many people in the room might have grown up on a farm. And that is changing. We now have only about 1% of our population is involved actively in farming. That most of us are living off the farm, and most of us are involved in other occupations. One of the values, I think, that comes from growing up on a farm is that you know where food comes from, and you know what it takes to prepare and cook food. I don't know if people in the room were members of 4-H, but that was one of the things that the farm kids did, and you learned how to cook, and you learned how to grow a garden. I always hated working in the garden, but I know what it takes to grow a garden. Eating, because there are so many demands on our time for exercise, for working, for events, for activities for children, we really don't eat together as a family anymore. And that is a value. We're seeing that children do better in school, that there's less obesity, if the family works hard to have at least one meal together a day, and not a meal gathered around the TV either. Eating, I have just a few bits of wisdom for eating, and I call it the Tao of eating. I think, you know, there are dietitians probably that would tell you eat X amount of carbohydrate, and be sure and have your plate look like this, or follow this basic pyramid or that. But I think eating is essential, and I think it can be enjoyable. But this is my wisdom for eating. Listen to your body. Enjoy meals. Cook more. Visit a farmer's market. Has anybody been to the market this year? Yay! It's my favorite place to go on Saturday and Sunday. See, I touched that. I'm sorry. It was, you know, the spring was so cold, I was afraid there would be nothing there, but there's been some beautiful asparagus and some greens. So if you haven't been there, please support our local producers and get some great fruits and vegetables. Think about eating mindfully. Don't diet. That would be, you know, one of my cardinal rules. Don't diet. And after understanding Dr. Sager's message, I felt like we really need to think about trying one gift of good food, not one gift of, reducing your sodium intake or whatever. But think about something you could add to your diet that would be a positive. I always encourage people to think about adding some nuts to their diet. 30 grams, which is just a handful, 23 almonds. What wonderful phytochemicals and nutrients are in that little hand of almonds. Think about adding something to your diet. You could think about adding olive oil. There was recent research that, and I have shared this research with some friends, and they were like, you drink a fourth a cup, 4 tablespoons of olive oil? But the researchers, and it was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, looked at 3 different arms of intervention. And one of the arms was to have a Mediterranean diet. And if you don't know what that is, you might want to put that on one of your to-do lists to look that up. But one of the things they added to the diets was a 4th cup of olive oil, good grade extra virgin olive oil. And they drank it. And that arm, they followed them for several years. They didn't lose weight, they didn't gain weight, because we all think about fat as being such a caloric load. But those individuals had the least strokes, the least amount of cardiovascular events. Very interesting. I don't encourage people to be a research group of one. We call that an N of 1. So I wouldn't encourage you just to go out and try it. But I think, rather than think about maybe some olive oil that you could add to your diet, use it as a addition with good bread, and think about adding some olive oil to your salads and vegetables. Olive oil is interesting because it solidifies at refrigerator temperatures. And I just want to warn you, when you go out to buy some olive oil, you might want to think about buying a small bottle and keeping it on the shelf rather than keeping it in the refrigerator. But everybody eats. I like to eat. I hope the food police person has not scared you away from eating. And I was going to help you with a mindful eating exercise, but it takes a little time. I would encourage you to look up the information about mindful eating, because we all, this is the multitask world. We'll read the paper, we'll watch the television, we'll do the email while we're eating, and that's really to our detriment. So think about adding some mindful eating practice in your life. I wish you all good food and good times, and I did bring you some of my Renegade references. These are not dietitians, but they are people that I have read their information and feel like it was well worthwhile. Especially Michael Pollan's books about In Defense of Food, and his most recent book about cooking. Because if you really are worried about your diet, you really need to think about cooking. And it doesn't need to be complex. I always kind of cringe when I see some of the recipes that talk about shallots and certain types of flavored vinegars and really complex recipes, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about very simple and very usable recipes. And as Aging Partners dietitian, I do write a nutrition column in our magazine, Living Well, and we have recipes and information there. So if you're interested, it's available online, and it's also available as a free mailing. So I hesitate to say this, but if you have any questions, I'll try to say something. Yes.
I've heard about the benefits of coconut oil, like it's even better than olive oil as an antioxidant. It tastes a little better. It's solid at a
Room.
higher temperature. You can like spread it on toast and stuff like that.
It's very saturated, and I am aware of the promoters of coconut oil telling you that it bypasses your liver or goes direct to your brain. I am not sure that that has been scientifically tested. I think it's more anecdotal, and I think you can be an N of one if you want to and see. I know the people that were in some of the research studies or that became an N of one, number one, taking tryptophan supplements really regret it, because you know food supplements, nutrition supplements are not regulated in this country at all. So, and I know I have this debate with some people that our food system is not always safe. Well, let me tell you, I think if there's some gaps in it, then go to the farmer's market, because you're going to find food that has not traveled direct from the producer. But let me tell you, at least we didn't get baby formula with plastic plates in it. We didn't get toys painted with lead paint in this country. That we do have people that are observing, that are testing, that are ensuring our safety through some of the food regulations. I keep touching the microphone, I'm sorry. Well, thank you for your time.